Welcome. We'll just take a minute or two to start. Hi, Ankit. Welcome.
Hi, Seema. How are you?
All well, thank you.
To everyone attending as well. Hi.
So as we wait for some more people to join, it would be great if you can tell us where you're joining us from, which part of the country. I do see some familiar names, Bani. I think I'm also seeing some other familiar names for me. I think there's somebody called Abhijin who joins us all the time, but we don't know where he comes from. Joby, I think that's another name. Palak, hi Palak. Palak is part of our cohort 2. Thank you for joining, Palak. Sairam, thank you for joining. So we have a very, very exciting hour planned for you, and I think I'm going to learn a lot. And also, we just discovered as we were chatting, and as Ankit was showing us what's happening with our own website. So very exciting and immediate messaging going. So I think we're almost ready to start then, Ankit, should we? Because we have a tight schedule. So I wanted everyone, please welcome Ankit Agarwal. He is a startup advisor and a digital marketer and a growth strategist. Ankit has worked with Uber before and has also been part of O&M. He's also faculty with the Accelerated Management Program and teaches digital marketing as part of our larger sort of marketing course. Very, very excited to have you here. And I know there'll be lots and lots of questions, including is digital marketing, is the digital marketer dead with the coming of Chat GPT and other AI tools? But I believe you have a small presentation for us. And Ankit, if there's anything else you'd like to sort of introduce or talk about, and then let's move into your presentation or your examples, etc. And then we'll, of course, take lots of questions. And we would request everyone to put your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try and answer as many as we can as we go along. Over to you, Ankit.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Seema. It's been fun teaching the classes, and it's fun to sort of talk about something that I call it is at the cutting edge of technology and business, right? And I mean, most of us know Chat GPT has been one of the fastest growing technology or a use case, if you will, right? And we're just scratching the surface, right? So what I wanted to do is keep it fun and sort of show examples and do a little bit of live demo of some of the things you could do with Chat GPT. And then, then take questions and see what interesting stuff could come out of it. And to be honest, what I want essentially for people to walk away from this session, right? It's not so much about is marketing dead or is digital marketer dead? I think it's for us to focus on what the technology presents and for us to be all being excited to try it. And I think as far as questions around saying, hey, does this technology replace the human? I think technology's existed for the last 50, 60, 70 years, right? And every time a new tech comes, everybody calls a bunch of jobs dead. I don't think that has happened, and I don't think that will happen, right? I think the way I think of Chat GPT is a great sidekick to you as a marketer, right? Or a great sort of supporting role as you will, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter how AI becomes exciting or intelligent, it still needs a human intervention, right? And which we'll sort of talk about as we do the demo, right? So what I wanted to do just to start with for anybody who does not understand what GPT is, and I don't want to go into a technical sort of thing because I'm not qualified to, but I think fundamentally, if you think about it, right, AI is essentially, if you go back a little, right, there is this thing called machine learning, right, which is what we all know. You take a lot of structured data, right, and you run a lot of models on it to basically bring outcomes, right? So for example, for keeping it relevant to marketing, if you think about it, how Facebook, Google, all these platforms, or even Netflix, right, looks at your behavior and surfaces different content to different people, right? Or how Facebook optimizes ads, right? They're essentially taking in structured learning, structured data, right? Saying how many people are clicking on something, how many people are converting. right? They take a lot of structured data and then build predictive algorithms, right? To say, okay, this is what you should do, right? The way simplest terms I think of AI as an extension of that machine learning, wherein two things happen, right? One, instead of structured data, it can also take unstructured data. So when I say unstructured data, it is very simple as saying you and me talking, right? It's conversational data, right? Which previously was not possible, right? And then it is just processing that natural language and building context into it and history into it, right? And we'll see that example. We already have a hand raised. How do we do this? How do we do? Do we open it up?
No, we won't open it up. Please, we'll request everyone to put it in the Q&A box and I'll open it as we go along. Please continue with your presentation.
Okay. So now the thinking of saying, hey, what can GPT do for me as a marketer or as a business owner, right? This is a GPT-4. This is unfortunately a paid version. There is a free version as well. If you guys go to chat.openai.com, GPT-4 is slightly advanced model. So what I wanted to do is basically think of us as entrepreneurs, right? And say, hey, if I had to start a business today, right, what could GPT do? And could GPT sort of become my sidekick in everything if I'm a solo founder, right? So let's just do some interesting stuff, right? Okay, these are called prompts, by the way, which is prompts are the basis of what GPT does for you, right? So you have to prompt GPT on something and then basically gives you the output, right? Okay, so see, I have already told GPT saying what role I want you to play. So it sort of will remember saying, I want every conversation I want or every response I want is from a marketing lens. Think about it, right? It did not tell me saying, hey, what you should do and stuff. Like it is not going into finance or ops or supply chain, right? Everything it is telling me is basically marketing related, right? So think about it, right? This sounds simple, but it is basically giving you everything you need. So now think about it. What I can tell you is, okay, I want you to identify a niche based on okay, so I'm telling you, I want to build a category or a niche based on what sells the most on Amazon. Isn't that cool? Imagine spending hours doing this on Google search and going to Amazon and clicking and typing, right? Okay, so I'm going to quickly stop it and then say, I want to filter this by something that is more. Like all I want you guys to think through is imagine sort of what was your proxy for when you wanted to do something like this, right? Right. So now I can ask it to stop generating and then say, okay. Can you please do some emojis that said mind blown? Isn't this powerful and fun? And I mean, I'll probably just stop generating, but you know what I mean, right? Okay, so now let's say we do this, right? Sometimes takes some time. Cool. So you have your tagline for your business. Now let's say now we go into audience research, right? Think about how you think as a marketer or as a business owner, right? You start with saying, what should I sell? Then you say, who am I selling it to? And then you go to how should I sell, right? So we got the tagline, we got the business, and then now it tells me here are the categories, right? Of what this demographic is. Okay. So let's say we choose fitness enthusiast. Or for somebody who's not in marketing will probably not realize, but this alone can take like 7 days, 8 days to start researching which communities do you want to target. Right now, imagine you've gotten your almost your media plan as well, right? uh, and this is what I'm like, this is just a taste of what GPT-4 can do, right? It is now I can stop generating, and if you want something tactical, it can also tell you, give me 3 Facebook ad copies for this. So Seema, you are right? There are parts of people who will say, okay, I don't have a job tomorrow, right? Because see what it is doing, it also knows that emojis work on Facebook, and that's why if you think of it, every ad copy has some sort of emoji into it, right? So that's sort of one example, right? We talk about, okay, Facebook is taken care of. Now what do I do with search, right? Give me 10 keywords to focus on. Boom, this is what I did for first 5 years of my career, right? I used to do this manually. Now you have GPT, so you don't need it, right? But and this is I'm going to stop here, Seema, and just sort of take a break. But see, essentially, this is what it is doing, right? It has become your sidekick, right? Or saying, if I'm a one-man company or even a small marketing team, I could do this all manually as well, right? But it would have taken me at least 7 to 8 days to do everything I did, right? So that's, I think, my core on saying why ChatGPT for marketer is a gold mine, or even a business use case, right? I'm going to stop here and sort of discuss it,
So,
and then we'll.
Essentially, immediately the question comes, and this is coming from Aditya. Will prompt engineering be considered a full-time career in the future? And while you answer that, for me, I think it was interesting to note that, the reason why this is working well for you is because you know which prompts to give as a result of being a marketeer all your life, right?
So absolutely, right? Yeah. So I think I'll address it 2 ways, right? So one, obviously, right? And to be honest, marketing today as well, right? Even if you remove GPT from the picture, right? If you think about Facebook, Google, Twitter, it's a very democratized space, right? Like your website is built on Shopify if you're an e-commerce brand, right? So if all things are equal, what remains is the creativity of the human, right? So it's the same thing, right? When you think of saying, hey, how do I want to position my product, right? It's your brain that thinks of it creatively, and then you can use 500 tools to distribute it to market it, right? So same way, yes, prompt engineering is like potentially becomes a full-time job, right? But that is what I'm trying to say. What the way I think of AI or GPT evolving is, especially for smaller teams, right? For smaller companies, it will basically get them at par with larger companies when it comes to marketing from a resourcing perspective, right? And I'll take some other examples also, right? Wherein you basically say, hey, big companies today have 3 copywriters in-house and 5 agencies that they work with, right? Right. But it's not that they're going to go away, right? But yes, I mean, like like only the folks who are super creative, right? And can upskill and think of saying, okay, how do I work with these prompts, right? Or if let's see, the other thing also is, right? GPT is like, it is intelligent, right? But the thing is, if you just like take whatever GPT is giving you at face value and use it verbatim, right? There is no stopping where some other person comes and puts the same prompt and gets the same output, right? And marketing, those simple things for marketing success is how unique you are, right? So there are 2 things. One is saying how good are you at giving prompts, right? Or basically building context for the AI. The second one is saying how good are you at taking whatever the GPT or AI output is and modeling it into your brand voice and your tonality and your creativity, right? So now the second question is, hey, I knew what prompts to give, right? And that is why it was able to do it for me, right? But it's also a function of saying, hey, I could just say, how do I start a new e-commerce business, right? And this is anybody could do it, right? Now, the thing is, obviously, the more generic you are with your prompts, the more generic responses are you're gonna get, right? So it is really on you. And that is why I think like no matter what technologies come, right? Yes, what it has done, it has changed the order or the scope of work, but it has never particularly taken away jobs, right? Like, for example, even when you, let's say you work with a brand consulting agency, right? And you're saying, hey, I don't need now 10 people doing all this research for 10 days, right? That does not mean those people lose their jobs. The thing is, they have to start upskilling themselves, right? And saying, okay, how do I now do more of creative and sort of higher order work, right? Wherein I have somebody who just talks to me and does my job as an assistant, right? Like that's how I think of GPT, which is saying it is a powerful assistant. And especially for smaller businesses or smaller companies, it gives them sort of that edge that they did not have.
So essentially, it means that now every one of us can have an assistant, but we still need to learn how to manage that assistant.
I mean, that is true with like, think of it, right? Like when I first became a manager, my biggest pet peeve was why can't they understand what I'm trying to tell them, right? It is, everybody sort of thinks of that, right? Even when you manage employees, right? And it takes you a while to sort of get to that chemistry with your junior or your senior, right? And that is just still communication, right? So that's essentially what you're doing, where instead you're saying, hey, I may not have the luxury of having like a real person to sort of do this work for me, right? And then Chat GPT, the more I interact with it, the better it gets, right? Because it is also context and history aware.
Correct. So that probably doesn't come so easily with AI right now, at least, or Chat GPT right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, and they are building, right? Like we started with Chat GPT-2 and we're already at a version 4. And there's already a version out which is only for corporates, right? See, what I'm demonstrating right now is Chat GPT-4, which is a public database if you think about it, right? Now there are more powerful versions wherein I can feed a Chat GPT my own internal data, right? So imagine being able to say, hey, you take my data and then give me answers on that.
Okay.
Right. So that just gets to a next level of wherein the context becomes even more specific, right? Because it knows what we are talking about. It has my internal data.
I think there are two questions before we go ahead. I know you have more examples, but this is Rajesh and I think Sairam. Both had the same question in different ways. Will Chat GPT throw up all that you showed now, or does one need to subscribe to Chat GPT-4? And I think similarly, Sairam was sort of wanting to know what is the functionality same in the free version and in the higher version, the Chat GPT-4, as you're sort of talking about.
Okay, so so primarily two differences, right? I think GPT-3 or GPT 3.5, the free version, right, has a limit on how many prompts you could give, right? The other one is GPT is just more powerful, and I can, like, the best way is to look at like some of the examples OpenAI talks about on their website, right? So 1 second. For example, think of GPT, the free version, as a librarian, right? Like, which is saying it'll give you great insights, but it is not as strong and robust in terms of understanding the context and what you want it to do, right? So for example, in the one that I gave you was Chat GPT-4, where I can establish what the GPT's role is, right? Wherein I'm saying you are my marketing specialist, right? That you may not get in GPT-3, right? If you look at it, there are some default models. And what it is saying is, think about this, right? GPT 3.5 does a decent job at reasoning, does a decent job at consciousness, right? Look at GPT-4. The reasoning is top level, consciousness is top level, but you sacrifice speed, right? Which means that GPT-4 is just more robust and powerful in actually giving you more context, being able to reason with itself, right? And saying, okay, what is this person saying? What context do they want to drive? So, I mean, like, my recommendation is for all of you trying and experimenting. The free version is perfectly fine, right? And it gives you enough and more to understand and get the capability understanding. As you sort of get better with it, then you get into GPT-4, and that will sort of it's $20 a month, right? So it's not cheap, right? But if you start using it for work and like you want to give it, like think of it as saying, if you have 3 people in your team, right? One person wants to train GPT-4 as a marketing assistant. One person wants to train them as a supply chain assistant. One person wants to train them as a sales assistant. So that's where I think GPT-4 becomes powerful, where you can actually basically say, you're not just an assistant, you're a marketing assistant. So you're just making it context aware so that all the responses you get are essentially focused on that subject. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think it makes sense to me. We have one more question before we go to your next example. This is from Ayush. He says, I want to make Facebook ads using AI. Are there any tools that you can tell me which can make my job easier?
Yeah, I mean, so one is you got your Facebook ad copy from here, right? And then there are a lot of tools, right? Like, for example, Canva also now has, right? So, for example, everybody knows Canva, right? Now, Canva has this new feature. Like, I don't know, it'll be free. You still need like a paid account to be able to do it. But again, right? Like, see, you can basically say, let's say, a skincare, a shampoo brand with background of cloud. Like these are bad examples, but it just takes time, but you can, right? Like it's just a matter of taking the copy from here. Now look at this, right? I mean, I'm not saying you run your ad with just this, right? It'll not be completely perfect, but you know what I mean, right? It gives you like this. Now you can just basically substitute your own brand or own product's image, do a lot of stuff with it, get the Facebook ad copy from Chat GPT, right? And there are a lot of tools with that, right? So this is a product or a full-blown platform, full disclosure, not this one, sorry. Yeah, full disclosure, I'm a token investor in this product, but again, like this is a great example. They have everything that you want in one tool, right? You can basically tell the tool saying, hey, I want to generate banners for Facebook and Instagram. So you can do designing, you can do AI writing, you can do full tooling where you can say, hey, I want 5 ads and then repurpose them for Instagram, repurpose them for Facebook, right? So Ayush, none of these tools will be free if you really want to do everything with GPT, but there are enough and more tools. Canva now does a decent job in the paid version where you can do a lot of AI prompts to build images, or what you can do is you can upload your own images and get it to animate, get it to AI enhance those images, right? So the short answer is that yes, you could do a full blown, like for example, like think about it, right? You need images, you need text, right? And what you can also do is also ask AI saying, should I try learn more or sign up as a CTA, right? Like these are things we think about. We want a lot of knowledge, but this can actually give you basically insight on saying what you want to do. And you can also prompt it to saying, no, I want data on what works best, right? So now you also know saying which CTA do I use, right? So long story short, Ayush, you can't just like click a button and have Facebook ads generated for you. But like, again, I keep saying, right? GPT is your sidekick, right? So you can give it one image and say, put a background of a cloud, put a background of me being in water or anything of that sort, right? So that spits out images. Then you use GPT to generate a bunch of ad copy that you can try. And then you can say, which CTA should I use, right? And it'll basically, you will keep doing it over and over again to get to like best versions of Facebook ads that you want to try.
Do you want to take some more questions or go to another example that you were showing us?
No, I can take one more. I know this is Kunal Dubey and he's my B School senior. So
all right.
I'll take that.
Okay.
Hey, Kunal. I mean, yes. I mean, the idea is, will it eventually replace Google search, right? I think the way it replaces Google search is, I mean, see, again, right? This is, let's be clear, right? We are like 1% of the audience or 1% of the user base, right? Which is even talking or showing up and knows what Chat GPT is, right? So I don't expect Google to lose its value or Google search to lose its value in the next 5 years as well, right? But yes, what will happen is for a lot of products that we use, right? Like Chat GPT or GPT or AI will get so embedded in it, right? That it will sort of, we'll not have to go to Google, right? But we have to understand that a lot of insights Chat GPT is getting is also building off of the data Google gives us, right? I mean, Chat GPT is not like rocket science, right? It is just reading all the data available on the internet, right? And bringing you in a different form. So I don't expect Google search to die. But yes, I mean, for a lot of us, what will start happening is we will just have like conversational interfaces, right? And which is true today as well, right? My mom only uses voice prompts for YouTube and Google search, right? Like, so texting is already gone. So AI is the next step. But then again, I won't call it like Google search dying away, right? There is still going to be a big audience that continues to use Google search. And the fundamental thing is Google search itself might look different, right? When they sort of integrate all things AI into it, right? Google search won't die. It's just Google search in an AI world may look very different.
They'll also bring it on, you're saying, essentially, and they make
Yeah,
it
I mean,
much
there is no
sooner
way.
than later. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's go with another example. There are a few questions and we'll take them as we go along, but I think you wanted to show some other sort of ways in which AI is being used in marketing in other places now.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So again, like I wanted to still focus on like, I mean, this is something that we all want to do, right? As marketers or especially people in marketing, right? We want to, like, for example, there's this concept called A/B testing, right? Every marketer puts it on their resume and like 80% don't even know how to start or how to go about it, right? But A/B testing is fundamentally saying, hey, I would love to be able to test two different variations of a same thing and see what it does to my business, right? Now, the reality of it is there are two issues, right? One, for you to be able to do an A/B test, you need a lot of things, right? One, you need somebody creatively thinking through and building hypothesis on saying, okay, hey, what is variant A? What is variant 2? What am I testing in the first place, right? The second thing is then somebody to generate ideas on those hypotheses, right? And the third is then you need a tool that can allow you to say, okay, we will try 50% of the audience will see this, 50% of the audience will see this, then we will see what are the results of it, right? Now imagine this is where I think AI will become super powerful, wherein it's not so much you and me going on Chat GPT and saying, hey, I want to do a bunch of prompts, right? What will happen is there are new startups that will emerge that will make it very easy for you and me, right? By integrating GPT under the hood, but giving me direct use cases. So for example, look at this website called abtesting.ai, right? What it is telling is you just give it your website URL, right? It will basically fetch the URL. So for context, this is Harappa's old website itself, right? And what it does, it already broke down saying what are things you could A/B test, right? So it's first saying headline, right? And it's saying this is the headline you're using. Here are some other variants you can use, right, to test. Now, again, I'm not saying these are perfect, right? And this is where the marketer or the human intervention is always needed, right? Because when Harappa is saying their target is saying to get hired into the best companies, right? The focus may not be saying, hey, join top 1% of world's most successful entrepreneurs, right? This is where the human is needed. We're saying, okay, this is not a good thing I want to test because this is not what my product or my brand is about, right? So it basically gives you saying now, it gave you saying you break this headline and you can test this one and this one, right? Same way it is saying, okay, next thing what you can test is this message, right? And now it's saying you could try these alternative texts, right? Now it's saying, again, the CTA, right? It's saying register now. Now it's saying, hey, should you try a sign up as an alternative text? Does it change anything? Or sometimes, and trust me, guys, for somebody who's done it at scale, these whole black button, red button at scale make a lot of difference, right? So simple things like, hey, should I change the button black or blue, right? Now think about it, right? In an ideal world, if you want to do it today, right, you would at least need one visual designer or a designer to be able to thinking of these variations. You will need at least one copy person and then sort of one founder or a marketing person who will say, hey, this is on brand or not, right? Now, technically, I could be one-man shop and I could just say, okay, you know what? I want to try this, right? And then I could say next, right? And now it will ask me saying, how do you want to define success, right? I will test these two different headlines, but what is your success event against which I measure this, right? So now it will also fetch your conversion event and basically be able to tell you, okay, if you use headline 1 and headline 2, what should be its impact on, right? So I'm saying Harappa wants more signups, right? So then when I run this test, it can come back and tell me, you know what, headline 1 converts at 5%, headline 2 converts at 8%. And then you can go back and change your website, right? And can I tell you, as somebody who does this for a living, this would take even just a headline A/B test would at least take like 48 hours to think through and set up, right? And another 14 days, 15 days to basically be able to implement it, get data, right? And now think there's a simple website that says, you know what, just give me a website and I'll do everything. You just prompt me on what is right, what is wrong, right? And again, I'm not saying this is the best damn product or it's not an endorsement of the website. This is what I'm trying to say is the power of AI, right? Wherein if you just plug in a Chat GPT sort of or a GPT algo or a model behind, right? See, it also will connect to your Google Analytics and be able to pass those data into your Google Analytics, right? And this is just beyond powerful for anybody who's actually been part of marketing. Right? I mean, I'm not going to go through the integration, but like you take this code, put it in your website, and then ask the website to start running the test. And after 7 days, it basically comes back, tells you, think this version 1, this version 10 will. Okay, for example 2, I'm going to take a break if somebody wants to have questions specific to this.
Yeah. I think there are a few questions. And by the way, Ankit, you and I need to have a session very quickly, just the two of us, because this has to work for me right away. But okay, there are two questions that have come in from LinkedIn. And if people have any questions on what Ankit has done right now, please do put it in the chat while I take the older questions. This is, not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It's Menon. Wants to know, you just mentioned that you can have Chat GPT analyze your own data. How can one do that?
Okay, you will probably have to, 1 second. The short answer is, I don't know, you'll need like somebody who's strong in engineering and be able to like basically look into the APIs and basically point it to your own data set, right? What I can try and bring is Chat GPT plugins. And I can show you an example of somebody who already does it. 1 second. Okay, so this is a very good friend who runs a very interesting startup in the state, in the United States, which is corporate gifting. And this is what they do by training it on their own data. 1 second. So, I mean, the short answer is, I don't know how to do it, but I know that you can do it, right? So think of it, right? What they have, is it visible or should I, 1 second. I will show you guys. Okay. Is it visible, guys? Okay, long story short, what it is they're a gifting startup, right? So they have a lot of details about their database, right? They have a lot of details in their database about that person that you want to send a gift to, right? So for example, because they self-select, right? They're choosing, they like coffee, tea, they like alcoholic beverages, they like to read, right? Now, what they've done is basically trained a small AI, which looks at all this data, right? Relative to that person and then brings nudges, right? So for example, they're saying like, because they know where this person stays, right? So they're saying a fire weather watch alert has been issued in Northwest due to this. Remember to touch base with this person for possible updates. Now think of it, right? If you're a salesperson or you're an account manager, right? What they've done is they've taken their own data and had a little bit of AI trained saying, hey, anything that is relevant to these attributes, right? Just give me that data. And now that AI basically brings a nudge and says, hey, there is something happening in that person's geography. It might be a great way to get in touch with them, right? This is a very simple example, but this is what I'm trying to tell you in terms of how can you train with your own data, right? And then there are a lot of companies, right? Like for example, Duolingo. Do we know Duolingo? It's a language learning app, one of the biggest ones, right? What they've done is they've integrated a core private GPT-4 implementation in their chatbot, right? Wherein that chatbot basically learns from all the past interactions they've had as part of their customer support, right? And then that GPT is a private GPT because it is trained on Duolingo's customer data or customer support data, and then pushes responses based on what is in Duolingo's history. So it's basically, you think of a public infrastructure or public data, you look at a public and a private mashup, right? And you're saying GPT is what, right? It is just a training model. It's, you put in a lots of data and then you ask the engine to learn, right? So instead of just training it on publicly available data, they're saying just train it on my data. So it's doable. It's just an engineering thing, and I honestly won't be qualified to speak about it.
Let's take another question which has come from Mahasan. This is also from LinkedIn. How different are other Chat GPT models and versions in results, accuracy, and rendering quality?
So, I mean, there are two ways to think about it, right? One is saying what is the public versioning, right? With Chat or OpenAI is the company that is launching all these Chat GPT versions, right? So they are making it very clear that every second model, every latest model that comes, right, will always prioritize accuracy and context, and it will make a trade-off with speed, right? So if you think about it, like Chat GPT 3 may not be as accurate as Chat GPT 4, right? And then similarly, right? So, and then obviously Microsoft has its own open API with Bing, and then Google has Bard, right? So I think the way I think about it, and this goes back to saying, will AI replace us, is also a fundamental question of saying you can have GPT give you a lot of data and insights, but at the end of the day, it's still your job to then do a quick fact check, right? Or look at accuracy and saying, does it make sense or not, right? So the easy answer is that if you just look at OpenAI, they've promised, or they've said that they will continue focusing on accuracy on every single model. And you can see that as well, right? Like if you just go to if you basically go on to the OpenAI chat, right, or OpenAI website, it will always have this where it will give you what model you're training. Oh, I have too many windows open now. It's become chaotic. Sorry. It'll always ask you, see, GPT 3.5, again, reasoning, consciousness, speed is very good, right? This one, GPT 4. And then there are private versions, which is 4.5 that is available to corporates to train. So the short answer is every advancement in my mind will focus on accuracy, improving accuracy, right? Like for example, Chat GPT for the most part, 3 and 3.5 are only trained on data 2021 and before. So if you ask Chat GPT 3 or 3.5, anything that is later than that, it will basically say, hey, I have no idea about real life factual events, right? So, I mean, that's something to look into, right? It is to what is the limitation or what is the data set that your responses are coming from.
Okay. Before we go ahead, we have a question from Anidhya Bhatnagar. Wants to know, does Chat GPT, whether free or paid service, allow transfer of learning or enhance the Chat GPT with some topic specific and then use it for a chatbot on a website? It's a very long question.
Yeah, I understood the context. So Anidhya, again, the answer is this, right? It depends on how much capability you have inside the organization itself to be able to take a public GPT model and train it to work with your chatbot, right? Or the other way to think about it is, I'm sure there are a lot of conversational chatbot tools that are now integrating AI components to it, right? So you can technically enhance that learning, or to your point saying, which is it allows transfer of learning, right? Where you're saying, hey, take this public Chat GPT intelligence, right? And marry it with my own intelligence on my website, right? And I can give you an example, right? Like not the perfect example, but Copilot is a website that does a lot of this, right? Okay, where's Copilot? Yeah, I mean, you guys should check out Copilot. I was trying to find another example of what is it called? I forgot. I was using it in the morning. E-commerce Copilot. Yeah, I mean, this is also pretty mind-blowing if you think about it. This is like a chatbot adjacent question. Or can I give you an example is what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, I'll give you an example. We'll come back to it. I can't find it. But the answer is that you can. It's just a function of, I think you will struggle to do it in-house, but I'm sure there are enough chatbot tools wherein now they will say we will leverage whatever GPT intelligence is, and then we'll marry it to your own data. If you go to openai.com, you will see a Duolingo case study. They're using it exactly. Khan Academy is also doing it, where their chatbots are now powered by AI and using GPT in the backend.
You also were showing me a very interesting example where we were talking, Ankit, I think it was something to do with a picture.
Yeah, we can do that as well. All right. Okay. So this is, I mean, and again, think of this as like you guys may not be able to do it because this still requires using Chat GPT and like building some code behind it. But this is essentially a person showing a notebook drawing and GPT basically generating a website, right? This is scary stuff. I'm going to just play this. It's very small. Okay, wait. The sound is not playing, right?
No, it's not.
1 second. 1 second. I'll stop sharing for a second and then try again. Why I'm sharing sound? Oh, 1 second. Okay, I should work now. No sound yet, right?
No.
I don't know why that is happening. I know the Parata told me. Okay, but bear with me, right? So look at this, right? What this person has done is basically just given it an image. I'll go back. And I can share a link in the chat pod as well, in the chat as well, so you guys can do it at your leisure. But what this guy has done is taken a photo of a wireframe of a website, right? Put it in a custom Chat GPT solution, right? See, it basically gave it this image and write a brief HTML for this, right? And it basically wrote up a code, right? Imagine how powerful that is now. Like you're saying, hey, I don't have engineering bandwidth, otherwise I would have built these 3 web pages. Now this one is just spit out code for you. And like we can still look at a live demo as well, right? Where what you could do is just go here, right? And say, can you voila. Okay, this is a very bad example because I only know HTML. So, and I can tell you this is correct. But like, see the power, right? Now I can throw this into a text page, save it as HTML and open it in a browser and boom, my website is ready. Isn't this powerful, guys? For anybody who's thought saying, hey, I had this great idea only if I had somebody who could code this up for me, right? And this is just one example. You can go as crazy as you want, right? Can you write a code for I mean, this is a bad prompt, but yeah, so this is scary stuff, right? I mean, as much as I don't think jobs will be lost, but this is scary stuff, right? This is basically saying if you don't operate at 100% of your capacity and you're ready to learn, you are probably going to lose your job.
All right, let's move away a little from that and take this question. I think Ayush has another question. He wants to know, can Chat GPT eventually replace SEO? And I think he's confused between Google Ads and Facebook. Ayush, you probably would need a little bit more sort of, I don't know. Can we answer everything that he's asking here, Ankit? Not really, right? Without the context.
The first one, I don't think I can answer. It's basically confused between Google Ads and Facebook Ads. Can you please tell me where should I do marking? I mean, I don't think this is relevant, right? Like that's a question you have to ask, which is saying, is it like what is relevant for your business, right? Yeah. To Ayush's other question, again, right, the same answer, right? Which is saying it won't fully replace SEO, because if it fully replaces SEO, that means everybody's SEO is the same and nobody wins, right? Can it allow you to become a great SEO person? Yes, but it will still require your ability to be able to be very creative with your prompts, right? It also allows your ability to say, okay, what is the best way to build SEO around, right? So, I mean, the answer is it won't fully replace SEO, but will it allow you to be a great SEO marketer? Yes.
Okay, we have another question. We'll come back to you, Anindya. There was one question, and it's a simpler sort of question, but I'm pretty sure Chat GPT can do it, or GPT can do it. Can GPT fetch details from a particular link or an article and build a key persona? And can it also summarize it?
The answer is yes, but not in GPT-4.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, there are tools now being built, and there's another version of GPT being built. So today, the limitation with the public version of GPT or GPT-4 or GPT-3, that it will not be able to take anything as a link or a YouTube link, right? Or any link can be able to do it. Right now only works as a text, as an input, right? But there are GPT versions where you can supply an image, you can supply a link, and you can basically say, if you want to look at an example, whoever asked this question, go to YouTube and say, can GPT summarize? And they will actually show you a video wherein somebody's built a tool. So basically, see, this is right now still in very much in nerd and geek territory, right? Which is basically they've just published a public API and said, somebody has an issue with like how my boxes are showing.
Maybe you can just close your, you can stop
Yeah.
presenting, and we can continue to talk through.
Yeah, 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so again, the answer is yes, it is possible. It's just not possible in the public version of the API, but very soon, right? The beauty of this is the API or the underlying model is super powerful, right? It's just a matter of building the right input interfaces where you can say, okay, you know what, how do I get you to read an article and summarize it for me? But it can do that.
All right. I think Anindya has another question, wants to know, are there any legal implication if you generate code using GPT and use it commercially?
Yes, and this will get into the ethical considerations as well. And it has already happened, by the way. I don't quote me on this, but I think this happened with Samsung, right? Where somebody was trying to verify or audit their own code they wrote, right? And what they did is they put it into Chat GPT and said, can you audit this code or compile this code for errors, right? And this is the big ethical gray area with GPT, right? Because anything you supply to it, it assumes that it can use it, right? For itself, right? So that is why it got banned in Italy, by the way, right? Like Italy basically banned Chat OpenAI because they said you're not taking a consent from when you're reading my data, right? So the answer is yes, there are legal ramifications, but it's also right now, who will you sue? You can't sue Chat OpenAI because it's an open source software, right? And like by signing up to use it, you are essentially giving away those permissions, right? And that is why I wanted to not cover this whole, what can you do by importing your own data, right? Because you might import your own data, but then you're basically giving away by design saying anybody could use it, right? The easiest analogy I can give, if you steal from one person, you're a thief, right? If you steal from multiple, you're an artist, right? So ChatGPT right now tries to be an artist saying, hey, I'm just stealing from everybody, but I'm not stealing from one person. So you can't really hold me accountable, right? But yeah, this is a big one wherein I would not recommend anybody to put their private confidential data into GPT, right? If you want to like still play around, just change stuff, don't put anything proprietary because like you want to do it for the right reason, but there is a definite ethical and legal ramification there.
And that holds true for even the paid version, right?
Yeah, absolutely, right? The only way to work on this is when you build a custom, like you just take the public GPT model and then you say, okay, I'm going to house it in my own server, right?
Okay.
And nobody else can, right? So those are like very sort of and this is what like companies like Uber and a lot of these companies do, right? Which is they have so much proprietary data, and we have data science engineers. We just take the public APIs and basically just train the model on our own data and don't take any public data into it.
Okay, there is a question from Manish who's joining us from YouTube. He wants to know, can Chat GPT be used to read my specific data and responses? are there any specific training programs for the same, and what is the pricing? So I think you partly answered that, right? GPT will read whatever you put in it, but there is no guarantee that it will remain private. In fact, it will use it for whatever it can, right? And
yeah, I mean, it most likely will, right? Like, so for example, and obviously, right, like right now, this interface is very text-based, right? But there are like people who are building layers on it, but I could still do it, right? Like, I'll give you a simple example, right?
so Ankit, while you're looking for the example, I also wanted to ask you, like, in the domain of marketing and sales, what are the 3 or 4 key places? Like, we've seen how it can generate content, it can generate code, it can do all of this. Are there any other sort of areas that are not obvious to people but very key to marketing and will help enhance your effectivity as a marketer if you use AI models?
Yeah, so the first and foremost is research and audience intelligence, right? Because I think what happens is every marketer wants to spend enough time understanding the space, understanding the category, right? Understanding the competition in the category, but we just don't have the time or the wherewithal or resources, right? So, and that's, for me, research for a marketer is the bread and butter of them being able to create, right? So I think for me, that I think ChatGPT is like a great sort of way to start that, right? Like, for example, like you could basically just tell, okay, I hate Zoom now. Okay. Like, for example, I can say, can you give me the best social media followers and engagement in the skincare category? Yeah, see, again, this will always prompt you, and this is like legally very intelligently done, right? So it's not saying, hey, I am only giving you, I don't know if I'm giving you the, oh, wait. See, my prompt was bad, right? So this was also a bad prompt, but I just wanted to.
Is this also partly because they don't have data updated after 2021 and therefore they don't want to say they can't answer real-time data questions, is it?
Yeah. So they obviously won't, right? But like, I basically built this, I think, did I build it before? Okay, I mean, you can do that, right? If you provide great prompts, like I did it and I lost that history. But you can definitely build wherein you can actually get like what are the top 10 brands and what is their follower count, what is their engagement count, right? So that is just research. And then you can also ask it saying, hey, what messaging do they use? And it can give you like all that, right? So that's sort of one area wherein you start with great research and it gives you that, right? Now, if you think about content as well, right? And all of us can write content, get ideas, but you like there are things that you know you want to do, but you just don't have the time or the resources, right? Like, for example, if you're a grocery brand, right? Now I wanted to say, hey, can you write me 2 welcome emails for a grocery brand, but one that fits a 20-year-old and another that fits a 40-year-old based in India, right? And think about how powerful it gets, right? So like, obviously I won't recommend saying just use whatever it is giving you, right? But think of how intelligently it is doing it, right? So it's saying, whether you're a student living on your own or somebody who loves experimenting with new recipes, right? And they're talking about wide range of products and they are saying, hey, you can whip up delicious meals, right? Now look at how it does it for a 40-year-old, right? We understand the importance of traditional recipes and family values, right? They're not talking about the assortment they have, right? They're talking about, we have an easy to use online platform, right? So like, now these are some of the lesser known, like everybody is jumping on saying, hey, can I get it to write Facebook ads for me? Or can I get it to create these 10 images for me? I think that is great, right? But that is just like something you anyway should be doing. But these are things that get missed and you say, hey, who has the time or the resources, right? But imagine how powerful this becomes, right? And think about it is, I think, to be honest, if somebody were to ask me saying, can you write the same email that is fit for a 20-year-old versus a 50-year-old or a 40-year-old? I mean, this has done a great job, right? But then this is where one of the ethical considerations also comes in, right? Because see, this is basically saying, hey, I am a non-emotional product, right? So it is assuming that if you're a 40-year-old, you struggle with online platforms, right? So as a brand,
Stereotyping.
yeah, so I mean, it is, right? Because it is based on whatever data it sees. So
Yeah.
this is also a consideration that if you're a brand that wants to just rely on whatever GPT gives you, I will caution this, right? Because that bias you may not have, but once a consumer sees it, they might hold you accountable, right? Saying, why do you assume that I am this person who may not know how to operate? So again, right, like it's a great way to use GPT for these things, which is saying, hey, I would have loved to do it, but I don't have the time or the resources. So I love these prompts, right? Which is saying you run your business, but like these are interesting use cases saying as a marketer, I want to see if I have a very, very different demographic, right? Like for example, at Uber, we had different demographics. Somebody will use Uber every day for commuting. Somebody would use only on weekends, right? Now imagine we had a team of CRM specialists who would write that copy.
Okay.
But if I'm not Uber and I don't have the capability, I could use Chat GPT to start giving me inputs, right? Now I take this output, make it my own, right? And then go out and test it and do a bunch of stuff with it, right? So that I think for me is a great use case as well.
Okay, we have a question once again, and this is, I think everyone's, we are forgetting we're in a marketing webinar, but people do want to know. Elon Musk has asked the stop of AI development to create safety measures. Very interesting. What is your opinion on that? And I will add another question here, which is someone asking, can AI be manipulated into giving fake answers or fake responses or malicious false information?
See, again, the answer to the first one is we are talking Elon Musk, right? So opinions are dime a dozen, but Elon Musk is saying something. I'm sure the guy is smart enough to call it out, right? But again, like jokes apart, right? I think there is that potential, right? I mean, we've seen this in movies, right? Who all of us have seen iRobot, right? The Will Smith movie where the robots become intelligent, have emotions, and they want to rule the world, right? So, I mean, and I'm not a technical expert, but I mean, you look at what GPT is able to do today, right? Imagine what it can do in the next 5 years. There's no question that Elon is right in thinking that like somebody needs to basically put safeguards in place, right? Because think like we've all seen these jokes, right? I want to order a pizza, but the AI is saying, you know, you're fat, you're chronic diabetic. I'm not going to let you order pizza, right? So it's like the servant becomes the master, right? And from AI perspective, from its code base, it is right in saying you should not be eating pizza. But like, so I mean, yes, there is definitely sort of that perils of AI at large, right? But again, like
we don't know that yet, and we don't.
Yeah, and if Elon is saying it, like he's like 100x smarter, 1000x smarter than all of us in the room, so I won't question the man. To the second version that Mahasen is asking, see again, right? Like that's the thing with AI, right? Nobody knows what is happening in the backend, right? So I've seen that example wherein you keep telling AI saying you have to understand that 2 + 2 = 5, right? But it's also like in technical, it is called like a Byzantine general problem, which is saying if everybody is doing it, then yes, AI might have to go back and saying, hey, if 1 million people are telling me 2 + 2 = 5, I'm going to go back, check my data, or maybe adjust my data, because like that's what you're trying to tell it today, right? It is only good as the data it has. But the Byzantine general problem is like, you need 51% of people to say something false is true for the network to be attacked, right? Or for the core network to be challenging its own assumption, right? So the answer is, it could technically happen where you could at large do a brute force attack and ask AI to infect itself, right? But again, right, like guys, let's sort of come back and make it a fun session. I'm clearly not qualified to answer some of this.
All right. There's an interesting question too, very quickly. We're at time, but somebody wants to know what are the best AI marketing tools you have used so far?
Okay, so the answer is I use definitely this tool that I talked about called Get Simplified. Because I work with a lot of startups, right? And like sometimes I'm the marketer zero when I joined it, right? So it's called Get Simplified, which is It allows you to do AI writing, which is it can help you with like blog content, Facebook ad copy, LinkedIn ad copy. You can generate a lot of social media posts there as well, right? So that's something that I've used at a multiple startups that I have. The A/B testing one that I talked about, I've used it at 2 places. So that's something that I definitely use. But again, see, right now I'm kind of marketer who's not bought into the fact that AI can replace me, right? Or for a good reason. So I'm still very much a big user of GPT-4, right? Wherein, like for example, every new like I'm an advisor and a consultant, right? So I sort of keep working with new companies. So for example, I just started working with a sports betting organization out of US, right? And I have no information about what sports betting is. So I basically use GPT to make me intelligent in one day, right? Wherein I just kept prompting saying, hey, give me the history of sports betting, give me the rules of sports betting, what is over under, what is inlay. So
But
that is
couldn't
how
you have done that on Google search? Just
I no, I could have, right? It's just shortening my time there. Because like think about it, right? Like you could learn on Google, but you have to then scan through, click a button, go to an article, read, see a bunch of ads, and then get to it, right? Chat GPT right now is just talking to like a McKinsey consultant, right? Which is saying they've spent 20 years in the industry, they can just give me whatever without the fluff, right? And over time, my prompts get smarter and my responses get that much more articulate and intelligent, right? And then what I also do is for writing a lot of Twitter threads or long form articles, right? Like, for example, I wanted to do an article saying best examples of sports betting, right? Use GPT to give me that research fodder, right? And then started picking and choosing and building multiple pieces of content around it.
I'm just curious, Ankit, if you and I give the same prompt to Chat GPT, will it give us the same answer?
Yeah, Chat GPT, like pretty much the same answer.
Okay, so then when Anindya says when you use content, generate content using chat, there's a possible of copyright infringement because someone else could have published it somewhere.
100%, right? And that is why I keep saying marketer will not die, digital marketer will not lose their job, right? And to be honest, there's like a whole workflow wherein you can get GPT to give you content. Then there's another tool that can help you check plagiarism. Then there's another tool that will say, now I can reword these articles, right? So again, the idea is the same, right? Every time you're operating on a public platform, right, which is clearly raising its hands and saying, hey, I'm not responsible for anything copyrighted, anything plagiarized.
It's a chance you take.
There's a very good chance.
If you don't change it or you don't modify it, you don't work 100%. With that copy, you still have that. And very, very thank you. And just last question from Kshitij. He says, Chat GPT relies on old data on internet. Would the use of Chat GPT also reduce the number of original creations? Again, if you follow it blindly.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the answer is things like GPT and technology at large, right? What they end up doing is eventually they will basically make mediocrity redundant, right? Because if you're just going to use what some tool is giving you, right? It's just going to lead to mediocrity. You're no better than any next person, right? So I think the beauty is saying, how do you use Chat GPT as an and not saying me or Chat GPT? It's always the answer is me and Chat GPT or me and AI, right? I think that's the philosophy.
At least for now.
I mean, even later, right? For me, I think like if AI becomes, then everything is the same, right? And especially in marketing, same is the death of marketing, right? Like, so, I mean, even 5 years later, yes, anybody knows, right? Like, who knows? But all I know is, I mean, every time technology is coming, it's never been this or that. It's always been this and that.
Okay.
For me, I would
very quickly, Sanchit has the last question, and I think this is up your alley. Chat GPT plugins that you have used for marketing and Chat GPT to improve customer engagement.
So the first one, I'm still on a wait list. So basically, Zapier has a lot of plugins that they're launching, but you're in a big queue. So most people don't have access to Chat GPT plugins today, right? The only option is some of the tools that I talked about, right? Which is the A/B testing one. Like for example, there's a whole workflow where you can say you can connect it to your HubSpot data, right? Where you can say, hey, I have these leads. Who should I reach out? So basically, you put a calendar on a sales guy saying, every week Chat GPT will look at your database and say, you should reach out to these people because the likelihood of you converting with this script is better, right? I just don't have access to it. I am on the wait list. So basically, if you go to Zapier and just search for Chat GPT plugins, you'll find a lot of them. I've just not used. And to be honest, right, again, like this is still very new, right? And a lot of companies and startups, especially the ones that I work with right now, at Uber, I probably would have seen like 3 different implementations because the teams would have built one. But right now, I've like worked with startups where time and resources are an issue. So we use whatever is easily available without requiring a lot of integration. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are, but I won't be qualified to answer them.
And how can you use Chat GPT to improve customer engagement?
See, again, right, the Duolingo example that I gave you, right? Or for example, you could, if you don't have access to a lot of resources, you could still start doing GPT prompts, right? And like starts with simple things saying, hey, a customer asked me this. My response was this. Can you give some more response variants, which could actually be more positive tonality, right? So that's sort of one example of saying you could do that, right? The second thing is the example I gave with a 20-year-old versus a 40-year-old, right? Now, that's a great way to improve customer engagement with which cohort you're speaking to, right? So you don't have to be one-on-one, but you could say, hey, I have fitness enthusiasts and I have random like vegan people, right? How do I speak to them differently, right? If you're lacking on resources, use GPT to say, how would you take the same piece of content and optimize it for this demographic versus this demographic, right? Suddenly you have ideally better engagement going, right?
All right, I think we are over time, but thank you so much, Ankit, for patiently answering all the questions. I know some of them went beyond the marketing and this thing domain and were more on legal and copyright, but I suppose those are questions that all of us have and we don't know where to go and answer them. If you're sort of interested in understanding more and also if you want to get taught by Ankit, please look out for our third cohort, the Accelerated Management Program from the Harappa School of Leadership. We'll put in some, you can visit our website, which by the way, Ankit, you and I have to chat and figure out what happened there. But thank you so much. And I hope we were able to help everyone. Thank you, Ankit. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.